Hey everybody! In today's video, I am going to be showing you the amazing new Hero Arts kit. So here's the kit, and of course I have a prototype, so it doesn't have the index sheet on it, but I am so excited because it has a surrealist theme. And I studied a lot of different styles of art in college, but surrealism was one of my favorites. And I actually ended up writing my thesis that I needed to graduate on a lesser known surrealist artist. And so this is so near and dear to my heart and so fun and different just in terms of stamps that I'm super excited today. So I'm stamping this melting Dali-inspired clock onto a white card front. And then we're going to create a scene that is very much like the Persistence of Memory painting by Dali, but with some very simple techniques. So I put a piece of masking paper in. I never re-ink before I stamp on the masking paper because there's always enough ink left to just stamp that again well enough for you to cut it out. And then I'm just positioning that over the clock, and that's going to sort of start this scene. So I'll take this out of my MISTI, and I'm going to use the MISTI ruler to create the sort of dramatic dimensional lines that I need for this scene. So this scene is very much like the Persistence of Memory scene, but with a couple of changes. I wanted to change the perspective a little bit so that the clock was the focus of the scene in a more prominent way. So the little structure that the clock is on is going to be bigger in my scene. So what I'm doing is just drawing the sort of box shape that the clock is hanging off of with a pencil and the T ruler. And I'm going to sort of lighten the lines with the eraser. You're not going to see the lines in the end, but I like to just sort of lighten them up a little bit so that I can still use them as guides, but so that they're not super prominent after I am done ink blending. So I'm using an artist tape to mask off the different portions that I will be ink blending. I love this tape. It's very gentle on my cardstock, and it's designed exactly for this sort of thing. So I will put that down and then put a piece of copy paper underneath my work surface as I begin to blend. So I have my ink stand over on the right for my mini inks, and I'm using pumpkin pie for this portion of the ink blending. Now this is very similar to what you'll see in the Dali painting. It's like a warm orange, and I love that. So I'll just put as much ink as I can down on this until you get sort of close to the actual color of the ink as if it were stamped, because the top side is going to be a little bit lighter. So I wanted to concentrate the ink on this portion of the scene. So now I'll just move that masking tape up to the top so that I can do the top portion. Now just be careful when you are putting the tape down, just not to smudge it with your hands. I've done this a million times. It's like my biggest mistake when I'm masking. So just make sure and keep your hands clean or wipe them off when you're moving the tape around, if you're reusing the tape, which I really like to do. So on this top side, like I said, this is going to be a lot lighter. What's great is you can already see the part that you've already done, so it's easy to make a contrast between these two sections. But I do want there to be a little bit of a shadow like there is in the original painting, So I'm masking off the edge of the imaginary box, and I'll be adding some Cup of Joe ink. I don't have very much ink on my brush, so I'm not going to use a different brush. I'm just cleaning it on the copy paper and then grabbing a little bit of ink from the ink cube. So from the clock all the way down to the lower left-hand corner of the box, the imaginary box, is where I'm going to concentrate this darker brown color. So that's sort of like it looks in the original painting, which is so funny. It's a painting that I really have committed to memory, like a lot of my favorite paintings. And this one is just so interesting to me. So this was an easy scene to do with this amazing stamp image. So I will go all the way right up to the clock, but I'm not going to go farther into like the top of this structure. I just want it to be sort of from the clock down to the lower left-hand corner. So when I pull that off, you can see how crisp that is and how much dimension it adds to this scene. So I will be creating both a sky above and then land over to the right for this part of the image. In the original painting, there's more landscape than there is box, but the clock was the most important thing to me. So I'm just going to put a tiny little strip of land, but I am going to have a nice blue sky above this. So summer sky, there's a reason that this ink is called Summer Sky. It is the perfect sky ink. So I'll speed this up a little bit. You know how I do ink blending. It's easy. So no need to view it at 100%, but I will just apply this ink to the top to get a light blue sky. Then I will mask the box portion and I'll add just a little tiny strip of land with the Cup of Joe ink again over to the right, just for a little bit of contrast. So then when I pull that off, it's so satisfying to just pull masking tape off and pull masking paper off. It's amazing. So I'll reveal the clock by pulling the masking tape off, and it's so fun because it's such bright white cardstock with this little 3D scene that I've created. So I'm going to do some very simple coloring here. I'm going to choose my markers by testing them out on the copy paper. I need one lighter blue and one darker blue. It turns out that the lightest one that I picked was too light, so I'm going to go with the 000 for the lighter side, and then I will use the darker blue. So I'm just going to be coloring the face of the clock in a very similar way to the painting. And if you want to put your tape back down, your masking tape back down, that's a great way to just color a very sharp edge up against that tape. Just make sure that you don't put your marker down on the paper for a really long time because that ink might seep underneath the tape. But if you don't do that, it is a great way to get a sharp line in your alcohol marker coloring. So now I'll pull that off and you can see nice crisp line. So I'll put the tape back down for coloring the darker portion on the top. I do tend to flip my cardstock around when I'm coloring just a little bit. So now I will color the top part of the clock face. The outside is going to be in a gold color, but I love the contrast between the two parts of the clock as shown in the original painting. So I will just fill that in. This is such an easy image to color, so simple. And then pull that tape off and you can see the difference here with the shading on the top. Now I have my new fave colored pencil. It's so blendy and awesome. And I'm going to add just a little bit of a shadow just to give the clock some dimension. So this is just a brown pencil and I'm adding just a little bit of shading on the left side only. Of course, you wouldn't see the shadow on the right side just because of my imaginary light source. So I'm just putting it on the left side. Now I will go back with a gold marker and do the outside of the clocks. There won't be any white space left on this card at all when I am done coloring, which I think is super fun. So now I will put this card, look at that. Isn't that fun? Oh my gosh, I just love this style. I'll put that back into my Misty, and my favorite sentiment from the kit. I love this sentiment. I love the font. I love Alice in Wonderland. I love everything about this. It is absolutely like a life philosophy. Many of the quotes actually in the kit are. So it's really important for you to cling to your own understanding of the universe. And I think that some of these sentiments in this kit are encouraging you to do that. So it says, I'm not crazy. My reality is different from yours. And that's true of all of us. So that is from Alice in Wonderland. So this is a super clean and simple card, but masking makes all the difference when you want to create a scene. I love masking. It's one of my favorite techniques. And this one is no exception. How fun is that card? Now I have the finished card here for you with the one that I made in the video, but I also have several other cards that are from my blog post that I just love. I love this little Marguerite one. There's a secret ingredient for the background to that one. And then this one was my sneak peek for the kit. So head over to my blog for a $50 giveaway and more information on the additional cards that I showed you. And thanks so much for watching.